Welcome to Mudit Verma's Furthermore podcast. Hey everybody, you do not want to miss this. I am with an awesome comedian named Stephanie Chiarello. Stephanie oversees Mimosas Mics, which is an awesome show that I've done. Stephanie, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you, Mudit?
I'm doing well as well, yeah. So Stephanie, tell us your comedy origin story. What got you into it and how long you've been doing comedy?
Great. Well, I'm a middle child. So it obviously started when my little sister was born when I was about 3.5, and I had to really make a name for myself in the family. I'm joking. I actually have only been doing stand-up for about a year, and true story, I've done it live once. Like COVID hit right after I did it once. So when people talk about like failing on stage, I haven't done it yet because it was my recital. Right. Like literally everybody was so super excited. We all thought we were the funniest people in the world. You know, we rode this high, and then we've been doing Mimosas and Mics, which is virtual. So
right.
You can't tell if you're bombing. So I can't decide if it's been good or bad. But I have done theater for a long time. So I wanted to be a ballerina as a child. So I pursued it through college. And I just say I'm an A-, like a solid A-. I just never quite made it. So I'd been on stage, and then I did improv. I probably started that about 8 years ago. And I have a political comedy show called Over the Lege. And all we do is make fun of the Texas legislature. And I've been doing that for about 5 years.
Very cool. Very cool. So I think our like comedy experiences are pretty similar because I've only been doing this for a year and a half, including the pandemic. So that's only like 6 months of, stage time before the pandemic hit. So awesome. How would you, so you mentioned you're the middle child. So I'm an only child.
Ooh.
And that's, so tell me about like the struggles of the middle child versus the oldest sibling. How would you distinguish those two?
Well, the oldest child is perfect, practically perfect in every way. At least that was my experience. And certainly my parents' firstborn. So the stereotype that, your parents don't love you all equally. I think my parents love me the most, but they do a good job of acting like they love us all equally. But my older sister was perfect, and the younger sister's the baby. So you're literally stuck in the middle where, you certainly can't live up to the older sister. I mean, my older sister, I'm the dumb one in my family. Everybody's got a PhD or an MD or a JD. And I just went and got my master's so I could have a couple of extra letters after my name.
Gotcha.
But you're kind of fighting for attention. And I couldn't live up to the oldest one. And then I wasn't as cute as the little one.
Gotcha.
And I think really, I've just been a policymaker since a very young age.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I do for a living outside of comedy, which is not a living. But I've always questioned authority, and my poor parents just were the authority when I was younger. I didn't get pregnant. I didn't do drugs. I made good grades. I just questioned absolutely everything my parents tried to get me to do. So what about being an only child?
Yeah, I mean, I think with being an only child, it's hard to put a frame of reference on almost anything. So just maybe from being cool to maybe writing stand up that's relatable, and I don't know, I can't help but feel like the majority of my friends they're either the younger or the older sibling, but it's just total of 2 siblings. So I think I identify more with the struggles of the older sibling, but I don't have too many friends that are the middle child just because they don't, have all the siblings. So
yeah, I love it. It's a great part of my persona, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Gotcha. Yeah. So could you tell us about your preferred kind of content for your stand-up? Like what kind of stories, what kind of experiences you like talking about?
People have described my comedy as awkward.
Okay.
I like to get right up to the line of human observation, something where we don't want to talk about, but I'm not technically dirty. I don't think I'm dirty. 95% of my comedy are true stories.
Gotcha.
They're true stories that I've barely embellished. I've kept a diary my whole life. I have lots of letters like literally handwritten letters from ex-boyfriends. Like I just have all this content. And so anyone who's ever wronged me should be very afraid. Very, very afraid.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So no, I resonate with when I started comedy, it took me a long time to actually put out bits that were near and true to like who I am. The first like couple months, it was very, it was like a lot of dad jokes, a lot of puns, a lot of wordplay. And I was like, it was so funny because I was really proud of myself for coming up with these things, but it was just like groans and whatnot.
I love dad jokes. I love
Okay.
dad jokes. And I didn't study comedians either. This was at this point in my life, I'm like, does this thing scare me? Then let's go give it a try. Right. Both because I'm bored and because I want to keep my mind fresh. Like this is my unscientific way of trying to starve off Alzheimer's or dementia, right? Like force your brain to do something else. But when you do start watching them, they're not necessarily telling dad jokes. They're just telling stories very well. So I've started watching for the cadence and how they're framing things and how different comedians, some do a lot of, body work or voice work or just different intonations or cadences. So that's fun. That's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
And that's what made me feel like I could do it. It's like, oh, I can tell a story. I can't think of a pun, but I can tell a story pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a very powerful tool. And do you, how would you describe your process for writing and or developing bits? Like a lot of it you said comes from true experiences. Do you have a certain method or maybe routine for just kind of documenting those reflections and putting them like on stage virtually and into bits?
Certainly. I would be so humiliated if I died and someone got a hold of my phone and they listened to my voice memos, because that's where I put them. And I watched some movie not too long ago and I cannot remember what it was about, but I mean, who was in it, but it was this group of people and they were all struggling writers, and like one girl got out of the group and then they all got jealous. But there was this one guy who kept taking his recorder and being like, Bob McShaw, great name for a detective in a small town. And I was like, oh my God, I do that. Like as soon as I hear an idea or something comes to my head or one of my friends says something, I record it. I have like almost 1,000 memos, which means I haven't gone back through them because I don't keep them.
Right.
That's what I do. As soon as I get an idea, I record it. And then I try to sit down once or twice a week and just type those up. And then I go from there. Doing Mimosas and Mics, Carson and I co-host. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't write as much. So I'm so glad we've done that.
Gotcha.
People have participated, which is really great. I worry that I don't do new material enough. And I think the truth is like, no, you hone your material. It's just that it's just my parents coming to my show and my cousins and, so I keep wanting to come up with new stuff for them. But I do know that comedians spend a lot of time.
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle I relate with because, sometimes or a lot of times with these shows, it's only family members or close friends that have heard my material before that, come through. And yeah, staying fresh is tricky. Usually it's like, finding different shows or different audiences and, finessing the material. Definitely. So how do you talk about, so I'm in between jobs and I'm pretty open about that. I probably shouldn't get too comfortable, but something that I'm like anticipating and trying to preemptively, get ready for is a balance, just getting to work, doing what I need to do from 9 to 5 and then comedy after that. So how do you keep everything in order, balancing different life commitments with stand-up comedy?
Well, let's go back in time just a little. I had, knock on wood, what are the roughest 2 years starting kind of summer of 2018. And I'm not joking, one day my husband told me he wanted a divorce. And the very next day, my boss told me there was no longer a place for me in the office. Like literally night to night. I could not have taken two bigger hits in my life. And from then, I had a hard time finding a job. I actually worked for the Pharmacy Association here in Texas. I would not recommend it. But I do know a little bit about pharmacy, and I just seem to end up in bad fits. So you're talking about your sabbatical. Like when I lost that job with the pharmacy association, I was like, you know what? I'm taking 3 months off.
Mhm.
Like I've gone through a divorce. It was traumatic. These job losses have been traumatic. When was the last time as a person you had a real chunk of time off?
Mhm.
And I took money out of savings and I was like, I need this mental health break.
Yeah.
And I wish everyone could get it because there's nothing like 3 months off.
Mhm.
Like you think a week or so is good. I mean, it was glorious. It was really glorious. So I just
Yeah.
recommend it if you can do it and be okay with having it if that's what's happening.
Right.
But it took me a long time to find a job, and knock on wood, I found one with a member I really like. It's been 4 months. I love COVID because there is so much flexibility.
Mm.
Like as long as I am available to him during the day, it doesn't really matter
Okay.
if I'm working at 8 a.m. or 10 p.m.
Mm.
So I'm better in the mornings. So I try to sit down
Ah.
and write. I've read like 2 chapters of The Artist's Way. Have you heard about this book?
I've heard of it, but could you like refresh my memory on sort of
Yeah,
the yeah.
I don't even know who wrote it. There's this male actor I have this huge crush on. I'm not going to tell you his name because one day we will be together. So he had mentioned it like on an Instagram live. I was like, oh, definitely, I'll go get this book. And it's supposed to help your inner artist come out. I've only read the first chapters. It's kind of like a KonMari,
Mm.
what a massage, eat, pray, love for the artist. But you're one thing is you commit to writing 3 pages a day first thing in the morning, no matter what.
Ah,
And
okay.
it could be anything. It could just be, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Whatever you need, you just have to force 3 pages of information out. And the idea is about that you're opening up your creative channels and stuff. So I've been doing that for a couple months pretty religiously, and
Mhm.
it has really helped because even though I'm normally just writing about my nightmares, which means about boys, every now and then a story will come or a little joke will come. And so I have found that that's been very helpful. I've got to write during the day or in the morning. Like at night, I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm really exhausted.
Mhm.
But I
Definitely.
do think you have to make time for creativity and um, then be okay with it. And I'll certainly say the older I get, I've not run out of hours in my day. I've just run out of energized
Mm.
hours in my day. So I have to be
Gotcha.
much, much pickier about what I'm working on.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned mental health, and for me, like mental health has been. I mean, we're both mental health advocates, but for me, it's like it's been something I've been both passionate about and kind of trying to understand, sort of like my personal needs, my how to best sort of take care of myself, maintaining energy, as you said, and just, I could talk about this forever, but I want to ask you like what's your general perspective on like mental health in comedy and then perhaps like mental health outside of comedy?
Well, right now I'm curious if you have to be depressed to be a good comedian. Because
Right.
that's what I'm kind of picking up on. But then I also ask, is everyone just depressed? Are we all sad?
Mm.
And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I have to do a lot more digging. But I do think tapping into that creativity, there's got to be something missing in your life. So either you were, bullied as a kid and you needed an outlet, or
Mhm.
you're an only child
Right.
and you needed an outlet, or a middle child. Like it comes from a place of, I'd almost want to say like protection. You create a creative space because you can control it. And
Right.
maybe something else in your life isn't going well. So I don't know. Um,
Mhm.
I know that we don't talk about mental health enough.
Right.
I know that it's so stigmatized, and I don't know why it still is. Like you put
Mhm.
a Band-Aid on a cut. If I could take a pill, and this is really hard for me to admit because I've been going to therapists since I was very young
Mhm.
because I was a middle child. But I remember my first couple of therapists I hated, but I think I was about 18 when they first wanted to put me on an antidepressant.
Mhm.
And I did it for like maybe a day or two. And my boyfriend at the time, there's some irony in what I'm about to tell you, which is going to sound mean, but I'll tell you in a second, was like,
Mhm.
you don't need that. You can do it. And it's hard. It's hard when it's your brain
Right.
because it feels really personal. You're like, am I not good enough? Why do I think differently? Why am I struggling?
Right.
If it's your arm, of course you'd go get physical therapy
Right.
if you could, right? So that's been really hard for me. Like, why do I have to change who I am by taking a pill to try to not want to jump off a bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it took a really long time for me to just be like, this makes me better. And
Right.
why not? Why not? And that there's no stigma. So I really want to talk about it. The irony here, it's going to sound so cruel, is that guy ended up killing himself, my boyfriend, in high school. And I think part of that was that we didn't talk about mental health, and he didn't seek mental health. I mean, even in hindsight, I couldn't tell you that I thought he needed it.
Right.
It just was so internalized. So I've been on and off antidepressants for years. I finally found a great therapist. I push everyone to do it. Again, you go to a trainer, right? Find a cute therapist. I went to the YMCA because there was a cute guy training me. Find a cute guy to talk to you about your problems, and it works out. It works out for everyone. So that's my experience. And
No, I totally hear you, because I've gone through I've had to try like different medications. I've even like written an article on like different side effects that like completely, like disrupted my life from different mental health medications. And yeah, it's just such a struggle, kind of, because like not only is it not talked about enough, but once we get to talking about it, it's like, all right, what questions do we ask? How do we kind of figure out maybe how to mobilize everyone to get their needs met? But then you realize there's like shortages and like backed up appointments everywhere. And then you throw comedy into the mix, and it's just like every other comedian seems to be having like really severe struggles. And
right. But then is that just the world? Are we all just struggling? And I still do, like, I still think I'm right. Right. I mean, I will take this pill because my therapist tells me that I've reached the, like, it's too intense, it's lasting too long, it's time to calm down. But I still think I'm right. I mean, I just think I belong to some alien race and they're coming back to get me sometime. Right. But I'm just at the point where, like, if it's like Advil, right? You got a headache, take it. You're feeling like I'm not really suicidal. I think I've been like functionally suicidal. And especially since my boyfriend killed himself, like I kind of feel protected. Like I will never do it because I went through it on the other side.
Gotcha.
Right. And I watched it destroy his girlfriend and his parents and his girlfriend's parents and all his friends. I mean, it has been more than 20 years and it still really touches, that niche core of us. So I'll never do it. But sometimes I don't love life.
Right.
Right. Like I'm not, sometimes the thought of like 40 more years, like I can't find a book to read now. Like people who want to live forever, I don't get that at all. Never. Dear vampires, never bite me. Please no. We can make out, but no part of me wants that. But I do think people worry, I had to try a couple of different things and I think people think that a pill is going to make you happy and it's not. It just helps you function. It just helps you deal with it. So
I totally hear you, because a lot of this is, finding the right regimen, finding the right therapies and combination of sorts, seeing what works for you. And like for me, it's still, I mean, I see a therapist that I'm very satisfied with, and it was super annoying kind of getting there with like the phone tag and then voicemails and then insurance. And then insurance can be or is tied to your day job, which I'm in between. So like, it's a lot of moving parts.
But I wouldn't be who I am without these struggles and these morose feelings. And I think that it really adds to my persona and my perspective. And I love it. I really love it. So I have to be careful to not get too happy. Right. Because we know what happens then. Music, musicians, they're not as good anymore. And I'm not making a joke at all, but I have 2 ex-husbands. My second ex-husband had a severe mental health disorder and did not get help. Like, I think when I met him, he was managed, but then he stopped managing because he doesn't want to take the pills, right? Because they make him feel different ways. So knowing that it is a struggle and what works for one person doesn't work for another person, I just think everybody has to be pretty committed to being okay with saying I need help and then figuring out their pathway.
Right. And it's that second part that like caught me by surprise, that it wasn't just enough to seek help and make that first appointment, which is very important. But then it's like, you've got to work together with professionals to really hone in on, what works for you. And if something's not working out, you got to make changes. And
and then what's the real you? But I know that I need this or else I would not I'd not be as funny. I'd not be as sad. I'd not be as real if I didn't have this part of myself. So learning to embrace it and use it is wonderful. But that doesn't mean that I don't lay around and cry a lot.
Right.
A
Gotcha.
lot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, this is very powerful stuff. By the way, could you talk about and plug the other shows that you do? You mentioned you do is it a politics show? And
it is. We're in our 5th year.
Okay.
It's called Over the Lege, Lege for legislature. And you'll see right here, I actually have it copywritten. That's my official copyright.
Very cool.
And we've 5 years, we've been a theater show where we do sketches, comedy sketches about the Texas legislature. We have a YouTube channel, Over the Lege. And then we did a podcast. We have one season called Over the Lege Live, which originally was supposed to be recorded live and COVID happened. And we're going to go back to a podcast for season 2. Session starts on January 12th.
Okay.
So in Texas, they're in session every other year for 140 days. And I don't know how much you know about Texas, but what the nation has faced the last 4 years, Texas has faced for the last 20 years. And I'm sorry, but it's just they're crazy. I'm sorry, they do not make a lot of sense.
Gotcha.
And as a staffer, I have sat there in committee hearings or watched them on the floor, and they're just people and they're not really the best people, all of them. So I'm really trying to get people to pay attention at the state level to recognize how much more influence you have locally than you ever do at the presidential level.
Gotcha. Very cool.
That's our goal. And we had songs. I mean, my parents love it. I'd say we have like 80 bona fide fans.
Okay.
And then maybe 1,000 people who come, right,
Gotcha.
who like know us. Because every time I did a show, I do an opening monologue and I'd be like, by a show of hands, who here doesn't know someone in the cast? And it was not that many, but
okay, cool.
I'm waiting to be discovered or just keep doing it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm just gonna keep doing it. And then there's Mimosas Mics, which is stand-up comedy. And I also make cards. I make greeting cards.
Okay, awesome.
I have a site called Pretty Good Crafts because that's all they are. They're just pretty good. And I try to upcycle cards because I'm a real I don't think of myself as an environmentalist, but especially greeting cards. Like you do not need to go pay $6 for a card that some poor child made in China that whoever you send it to is going to throw away immediately. Like, don't do that. There are enough cards in the world. Let's just resend them around. I would love a recycled card. Like you can just cross the names out.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It said Dear Mudit, have it say Dear Stephanie.
That is so cool. Huh. I've never thought of that is so unique and yeah, really, really cool messaging.
Because my parents just gave me a whole bunch of cards, like here, you can use these cards. Well, I just made this one for my dad, so it kind of hurts. I don't know if you can see it, but I take this really old card and old stamps and and then I just put this fun. So it's just like all this stuff is reused. Like this is an old card. Yeah. So it brings me a lot of joy, except I thought that was really funny. Like this was 2 months ago and dad's already like, oh, you can recycle it. But I guess it's double recycling. So
gotcha.
It's fine.
No, that's really cool. And yes, I'll be plugging all of this information, Stephanie's shows on Over the Lege, Mimosas and Mics, and Pretty Good Cards. Did I get that right?
Pretty Good Crafts.
Crafts.
I make a plethora of crafts.
Gotcha.
And I am single and available, but damaged and picky. Like you're gonna all the other guys have used up all the guy chances. So you're just gonna have to be really, really good.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I want to talk about soccer too.
Oh yeah.
Because I love soccer. I played soccer from the time I could up until about 8th or 9th grade, and then I had to pick between ballet and soccer. And I picked ballet, and then I went back when I was really frustrated with ballet. I started playing again. So I've played rec for like the last 20 years. I've torn both my ACLs. Again, I'm like an A-. Pretty good, but I'm just not good enough. I was never good enough.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, so I played soccer all throughout high school, and so I played JV 2 years, was JV captain the second year, and then varsity the latter 2 years. But I barely made the varsity team, but our team was really good. We won states my senior year in high school. And it was something, I don't know, like there's so much to unpack with my relationship with soccer, because I made the team and I was very like devoted to it, but I just wasn't like, so first, and like I didn't start, but not only did I not start, like I couldn't like fit in. Like it was a little bit of like a social, I wouldn't say outcast, but maybe just on the boundaries, like in kind of like the social scene in high school.
Sure.
And then, being on the soccer team helped that. But like it was, I just couldn't understand a lot of the lingo.
Like offsides.
Right. Well,
yeah, it's a tough concept.
Well, I mean, there was definitely, because actually I really only took it seriously come high school, and
Right.
and the high school I went to, again, there's just so much to unpack here. The high school I went to, the first year it opened was when I was a freshman.
Okay.
And so there were effectively no cuts on like any JV teams. Meanwhile, our neighboring high schools, which have been around for decades and decades, like there are totally cuts on like the JV teams, like really good soccer players not even making the JV team. And that just wasn't the case for us. It was like this mixed bag. There's a lot of like things happening. Like, so you had brand new newbies, posers like me, like joining the team. But then like you had, I don't know, the school was like internally recruiting really seasoned players. So I did have to learn like soccer centric lingo, and just like, once I learned it, not tell anyone how new I was at it. Yeah, I think I feel like my relationship with soccer it's more about like my life, or
Yeah, we'll have to unpack that. I see some comedy.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
I hated every day of high school. And I was this athlete who was also a ballerina. So I was part of the art community and the athletic community, which don't always coexist. And then I was actually smart too. So it was like I had friends in every group, but I didn't really have any good friends because nobody trusted me enough. Well, like if she's in the AP class, then she can't be cool enough for the soccer team. But if she's playing, she's a ballerina. So
gotcha. Yeah.
I hated it. I really did. College was such a blessing for me when I found other awkward people.
Yeah. And I think that really hones in on what I'm describing, because like, I feel like my soccer teammates, like their idea of maybe, I don't know, unwinding, or they would keep up with like sports, like football, like NFL football. But I wouldn't. Like I'd play certain video games, or like keep up with maybe certain TV shows that just weren't cool. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of my relationship with soccer is very bumpy. Okay. And then so it's like we won states our senior year, and I did get to play in like the state championship game and the game prior. And I say that because like that wasn't there were several games I went through in the regular season in which I didn't even play. That's how much I was warming the bench. And
left bench warmer.
Left. Yeah, on the left side. Yeah. And I mentioned that because when I went to college, like there's this like emotional baggage I was carrying, because I wanted to, I wanted to pull off some miracle and like try out for the University of Maryland like Division I team. It totally didn't happen because they don't do that. Like they like there's a separate pipeline that goes into these big schools that's like independent of like a student that's like in there as just like an academic thing. A lot of my like college experiences and beyond I think the roots of some of these issues like kind of came from my very bumpy relationship with soccer. Yeah. And then it even ties into pharmacy in the sense that I usually wouldn't make such big decisions so hastily, but it was like this cascade of like frantic catching up. Like my freshman year of college, I was playing club soccer and was like hoping that somehow that would translate into an opportunity to try out for the Division I team. And I was like going to the gym so much and exercising so much that like my grades were slipping. And what was interesting is my other friends, their grades were slipping because they're partying too much. Like they're, just 'cause, like they're going nuts as one should, like in college.
Yeah.
But then like once I kind of realized that this soccer thing isn't working out, then it's like now I have to catch up on my partying and my grades. Let's just send my ass to pharmacy school. Like it just, like.
Because what is the best way really to up your partying if you have access to drugs? Well, I feel that way too as a dancer. I mean, I had rehearsal every single night, every weekend. And so my joke about like not hitting puberty till 21, I mean, it wasn't quite that late, but like all these movies that are like ballerinas as these really sexy entities. No, they're not. I mean, they don't even know what a boy is, right? Like it's all a lie. They might be super skinny, but I was left-footed. So like I could run really fast and I could kick really hard.
Gotcha.
That's it. Couldn't dribble, couldn't juggle.
Right.
But those were my skills. And I could still kick it all right. I cannot run.
Gotcha.
No more running.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, that's worth mentioning because it took a lot of like faking it to making it for me. I don't know if that made any grammatic sense, but like I had to understand the systems aspect of soccer, like being plugged into the 11-player system. I had to do a lot of posturing to pretend like I was understanding that. Because the only other thing I could do in the meantime was spend time with the ball alone and just like max out on my ability to like do tricks and little dribblings and jugglings. And, so that, I mean, that's, but that's the thing, like the priority in soccer is like the 11-player system and who you're passing it to. Like, you don't need the fancy schmancy stuff, but like, that was my artsy side and like my meditative side and like all kinds of stuff, moving stuff.
Oh, I see a lot. I know that for me, soccer is the only thing I've ever done that I don't pay attention to anything else. And that's why I still play. I've not played during COVID, but you're thinking about the teamwork, you're anticipating where the ball's going to go. You're trying to run fast. I'm just playing the game and it's the best. It's like actually really good for my mental health to like bring this back around. It's the only thing I do where I'm not thinking or worrying about anything else.
Gotcha. That's really cool. Yeah, really cool.
But I'm an A-. And once you accept you too can survive being an A-, the world opens up, Mudit. The world opens up.
That is awesome. I like that. I will strive to be an A-. Yes.
Yep, that's all you need, man.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. This has been a huge, huge pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad we can be long distance friends.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Okay. And one day I'll be like, hey, remember when we used to do those shows together? Oh, yeah. Maybe our Netflix specials could be right after each other. Oh, I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What would you call your Netflix special? Would it be like something with A- or what do you think?
Yeah, like A- all around. I did not have an imaginary friend. I became an imaginary person as a kid. Her name was Kate Calabrina.
Oh.
And she never misbehaved, got really good grades, did all her chores. So when my parents would be like, Stephanie, did you do this? I'd be like, I'm not Stephanie, I'm Kate Calabrina. So I feel like I'd have to do something about Kate Calabrina.
Okay.
Title.
Very cool.
What about you? What's your comedy special name?
It would be, I've got to take a lot of time to think because I've already used the phrase furthermore for my podcast and where furthermore came from was like one of my early shows, which is an open mic. I didn't, you don't even need transitions in comedy, at least the bulk of it, but like I need to fill space, and I like out blurted furthermore. And that's how the podcast name came about. But maybe at least something like emotional soccer ball, or I don't know, like I'll think about it.
Call it like trickery. Like, what's a really weird foul you can get called for? That's the only one I know of, which I didn't believe was a real thing, but it is.
Handball. Well, no, I don't really use my hands.
Red card.
Yeah, red card, yellow card, studs up. Like if your cleats are like facing
I like that.
Up.
I like
Studs
that a
up.
lot. Yeah.
Studs up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Studs up.
Huh.
Studs up.
Yeah.
Or honestly, and I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, left bench.
yeah.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, that is pretty solid. Left bench. Yeah.
Yeah, left bench.
Yeah.
A- and left bench. We're coming to you live.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I'll be putting all of Stephanie's social media info and all of her shows' social media info in the caption. And yes, see y'all next time.
All right.
Bye.